Okay, here we are. Rotary in Wood Square. Hope you enjoy this. Come on, you. Have to give credit to a lot of other people. We will sort of skip over that. Just in case. But at any rate, there's a whole variety of publications that are available. I think I showed this last time. These three, the two on the left and then the one below, are the Images of America series. These three are on Hudson. Lou Halprin in the back, running the camera, has put these together with the Historical Society. They're mostly photos with some captions. And those are available. The top right, Bicentennial Scrapbook, put out by the Society. And this one here, 1966, should be a familiar date, 50 years ago. Doris Rogers and I think junior high, is that right? Great. Students put that together, and we have some available, I believe. I think we have some, couple. And we are in the process of reprinting Brigham's early Hudson history, the sort of definitive book, really interesting series of articles that were written very late 1800s, 1898, 1900 in through there. Just tons of stuff, sort of the book. These two, I'm not sure there are many available. They're really old, but they've been scanned, as is most everything else here. So there's lots of materials available, point of the story. This series, by the way, there are thousands of these all across the country. Almost every town and place has, if somebody did it. So they're around if you, I don't know, go to Florida in the winter or some foolishness like that. You'll see that there are those books. Okay. I think you saw this map the last time. This is a really old map, 1801, which makes it
a couple of years old.
Couple of years old. 215 if my arithmetic is good. We have this in the Society manuscript. There are none others. We have high quality scan of this. But this, and let's see, I think here is the river. Here is downtown that we're going to be talking about, and we'll just zip through so you can get a feeling. Lincoln Street and Washington Street, that of course now forms Route 85. Main Street going east, Route 62, and Forest Ave. This is an interesting map. This one is from the Marlborough Historical Society from their website. Appropriately, it's a map of Marlborough, 1835. It's really old, but there's a problem with this map. And some clown drew in a boundary, this line right here, which clearly did not exist in 1835 since there was no Hudson. That's our south boundary. But nevertheless, the importance of this map is, come on you, up here, and an enlargement of that, which again we saw last time because we were talking about the dam and the river. Here is the Assabet flowing up here. It's dammed up. Hog Brook, Tripp's Pond. And you can see a little bit of River Street, Central, Lincoln, Washington Street, and then Main Street heading off east. And this long thing here, Danforth Brook, backed up as Bruce's Pond, and then becomes Tannery Brook, which is on your walking tour. There's a little bit about that. Very familiar names scattered on this map. This is a very old map. An easier one to read, clearly not made in 1853, but shows us where we are. Just to help you a little bit here, here's Felton Street. Pope, begin to see where we are if you've kind of lost your bearings a little bit. South, School, and where are we now? Can you see where we are, or where we will be, or where we are on the map? This building wasn't here yet. There you are. What's interesting and may have thrown you off is there's no Unitarian church yet. This is still Burnham's lot, right here on the corner. The church will be there a little bit later. If we superimpose a modern, that's pretty much what you get. It's just very difficult when you've got old maps to take new stuff and put it on and expect things to line up. They don't. That's why in GIS work they've invented something called rubber sheeting, which is just like you stretch a little bit, you pull it, you squeeze it to make things fit. It's cheating, but I call it rubber bed sheeting, but that's a different term. Okay, zooming in. Here we are. This is clearly Main Street and Washington Street. Here is the dam and the river. We looked at that last time. We're now going to focus up here on what will be the Rotary, but isn't yet. I mean, it's just two roads coming together at an acute angle. But the first store was Wood Store, 1842, 175 years or something. Was there a long time. And we'll see pictures of it. Here, near it, was the large rock, blasted out 1854. And this is all just by verbal description, not because it was on a map. But that's approximately where it was. In fact, we can be a little more definite about that. And there were some hay scales, since there were a lot of farmers in those days. And something here called Tin Pan Alley. Notice there's no road here. But apparently it was where they stored wash tubs and so forth, and kids would come and beat on the tubs, and okay. But you can see what's going to happen much later. Talking about the rock ledge, you might not have thought about this, but if you go up Main Street, past Church, past Pope Street, you start to go up, right? Yeah. Rather definitely you start to go up. Not hundreds of feet, but it's clearly an incline. Well, the reason for that, this is a map made a long time ago for sewer work, but it helps us here. This is the map view, but this is really what we want to look at. Here's Pope Street. This is a cross-section, as if you cut down in the ground and looked. This actually is the sewer right here, and that's what they were trying to do. But what I did in red is put on the rock ledge that was found when they sampled down. And the rock ledge, there's a vertical exaggeration, it isn't quite that, but you get the idea. So here is the rock ledge. And this is why Pope Street, my Main Street, has an incline, because there's bedrock there. And evidently, in the earlier days, that's a little exaggeration, but it protruded through. So they blasted it out, and voila, we have an elevated wood square. Oh, I love this. I hope you can see that. I mean, would you have picked the Rotary if you knew this? Anybody tried to plant in New England soils? You appreciate this. Okay, well, let's look at the town itself. Here we are. Marlborough to the south, our parent town. Berlin, Bolton, and those people over there. And then the snooty folks to the east. But this is what we look like now, but we didn't always look like this. Going to show you a couple pictures. You have to stay awake for this. Where are we? River Street, looking down Port Street. Very close to the town line before you go into Berlin. I'm actually standing in a square, so-called, and it's not Wood Square. We're in the front of the fire station, yep. And this is Cox Square. It is called Cox Square because, you know, the big, and I think it's yellow, the big building on the corner between Lincoln and Central that has a beautiful view down is the Willard Cox house. And actually, the Cox name lives on because Aunt Susie Cox bequeathed to the town, the first one to do it, I think, 1888, $2,000 for the maintenance of women in dire straits, not paupers, it says right there. And that fund still exists, and there are about 10 of these. That there's trustees of benevolent funds, and I think it's up to about 14,000 now. But nevertheless, okay, you know where it is. Boy, that really looks, I guess it's just my angle. Okay, that might be a little less familiar, but you've all been there. Manning and Apsley. Yep. Well, if you can read the sign. Cox and Stratton. Now, if we take those several pictures that you just looked at, and those are the circles. Here's the first one, then Cox Street, Manning and Apsley, and then finally, Cox Street up there. And if we should draw a line through those, I could have picked a number of other pictures along that line. That was the original town line when we separated from Marlborough. Now, when did we become incorporated? This is the 150th, I see 150 from 26. Look at the brochure, 1866. In 1866, that was the town boundary. And by the way, this is Worcester County. Well, that was, right? And we're Middlesex. When we split off in 1866, that was the boundary. Not what you see now. If we back up, that's the land that was Bolton. Come on. About 1.5 miles square. And since we are, we tried to snitch some of Berlin too. We were non-discriminating grabbers of land. We didn't get that, as you probably know. So when you travel River Street to River Road, it gets a little funny. That's why. We're 11.5, that's 1.5 miles, so we gained about 10 or 12% when we took that land from Bolton. And when did we do it? We did not in 1866. It was about 2 years later, in 1868, almost to the day. What other boundary changes for the town have there been? There's one other boundary change.
From Marlborough.
Pardon?
You took land from Marlborough.
Not that I remember. This affects me personally. At Lake Boone, the town line was drawn before the lake, so it ignored the basins and stuff. In 1979, we drew it to go down the lake. And people like Alan Cattell, some of you will remember, was in Stowe. I was in Stowe. And a bunch of us over there, we moved actually from Stowe to Hudson without moving. There was no change because we always went to Hudson schools and paid Hudson taxes. I mean, it was just so it really codified what was long-standing practice. But this sort of thing happens from time to time.
How does that happen?
I'm sorry?
Why does that
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Why does it happen? How did it happen?
Well, the one running down the lake, that's really a good question. I'm not sure, because it didn't change anything. Well, actually, it sort of did, because the people that were over on the Stowe side, but in Hudson, like the Seleucids, they had a place right at Indian Point. They actually moved. So I think they paid to Stowe. I mean, there was some fiddling going on. But, okay, and how much do we pay Bolton for that land?
0.
Oh, no. No. 10 grand. That was kind of a bargain. Okay, moving on. You saw this a moment ago. Let's put some street names up. Central, the short little street, Rice. Lincoln, named, of course, after the president, as was Washington. It was all very patriotic in those days. River, and notice, this is the town bound. Was the town bound, let me put it that way, when we separated off. So you can see, actually, see, is the Willett Cox house. All of this stuff, once you get past and start to go up the hill on Central, that all was Bolton. Town line there. Let's get to some fun stuff. This is an incredible picture. The first Decoration Day. Now, this is 1869. How much before then had we invented practical photography? Well, you can argue, but somewhere around the late 1830s, very late. Take 1840. Fortunately, it invented, or unfortunately, because we have that incredible record of the Civil War with those incredible pictures, and that's when it really took off. So this was 30 years after that, and you say, nothing in that picture exists. Obviously, the people are long gone, but all of the buildings and so forth. To help you, we're going to come back to this in a moment because we can say more about this picture.
Go back to that. Why was it so built up only 3 years after the town started?
Because it was built up a lot before then. It isn't that we started the town. You remember that picture of Marlborough when we zoomed in on the not clear picture? There was a lot here. And actually, there's been a lot here since pretty much the early 1800s. It kept adding up, and you'll see some more maps of that. All of these pictures are scanned. They're digital. They're available. So, let me show you what I believe is the view of that from that picture. Now, I have to thank some people. Jimmy Quinn for one, leading me to Mike Caceres at the Micro Creamery, because this is from the second floor of that building, which did not exist at that time. So we have to kind of guess. I originally tried the Oddfellows building, and it just didn't feel right, because not only are the buildings obviously totally different, but even the road somewhat different. Okay, well, let's go back. The reason we know much about this picture in 1869, it's hard to see, but there are 3 young girls here. In 1935, there was an unsigned article in the newspaper that talked about this picture and some of the people in it, and it had to be one of those girls. But it's a fascinating article. But what they're doing, this is the first Decoration Day, which of course then morphed into Memorial Day. Some parts of the country still call this Decoration Day. Some years back, went to backwoods Pennsylvania, and it was still Decoration Day. But nevertheless, what's happening here is that James Joslin, who is a very famous lawyer setting up things, he set up the language, it was a lawyer, set up language for the town, all that kind of stuff. He's speaking on the front porch. We're going to look at all these buildings. And people are sort of gathered around to hear the speech, which we do not have, or I haven't seen a copy of it. Okay, here is, now that was 1869, here's 1877, but you got to be careful when you look at old maps. My background is geography and I'm kind of familiar with this stuff. In those days, when the maps were dated, the information for those maps was likely to be quite a bit older and not necessarily reflective of that year. These maps, that's true. They are what happened then. But I do want to draw your attention. Here is the dam, the river, Wood Square. But notice these buildings here. They're actually separate buildings, not like what we're familiar with today. Because from the river all the way up and around, down to the Hudson House, except for the alley, they're all continuous buildings. But in the early days, not so. Okay, we're going to look as if we're up here, and that's kind of over, actually, I think it's over like St. Michael's Church, looking down. And we have what is called a bird's eye view. These are incredible. We have this in the society. And we've scanned it. There were quite a number of these done. They weren't done from balloons. They were done by skilled artists who laid out the streets and then put themselves up as if they were a bird's eye, and they are called bird's eye views. This is 1878, about the same time as that map. Here is the river. The dam is here. The Assabet, we talked about these buildings last time. Here is Wood Square, and we're going to look and take a little tour around Wood Square. So we'll zoom in a little bit. Here's the town hall on your left. Here is Pope Street, Felton. It gets a little complicated here because there isn't anything there now. It's the Rotary. But this will be Washington Street going up and all the way across the dam. And what we're going to do is look at a couple of these and then come back and look around this way. And next time, if we don't do you in, we're going to tour down Main Street and look at some of those buildings. And many of them are on that walking tour. Okay. I'm not sure it was clear. This is the first building we're going to look at. The pictures that you will see actually predate that building, but we're talking about the location of the building. Here's one of the very first. Residents of the late Silas Felton died in 28, so this sketch was probably about 1830. I mean, if you refer to somebody as late, it wasn't a long time ago. It was fairly recent. Silas Felton, very important guy. He was selectman, he was treasurer, he was a moderator, he held every spot. Trouble with tracing some of this stuff. His son was Silas Felton. So, you know, when you try to put some of this stuff together, it can get a little interesting. But this was his house. And here is a building, a commercial building next to it. Notice this tree has a couple of barriers. Same place. This is a photo now. I'm not sure when. 1850s maybe. Here's the house. Here's the store. And obviously, because of kids speeding along in their rigs, probably on the damn cell phone, they had to do this so they wouldn't crash into the tree. Damn kids. You think it's all just now where kids speed along, not paying attention. Okay, well, here it is again, somewhat later. I assume this is later because the trees are gone. There is the original. And this is now a store. It's a little hard to read, furniture and carpets, but a relatively small building here. And that's about where it was. Can't be any more specific than that, but somewhere along through there. Of course, there was no South Street at that time. And we know it was not right at the dam. because there was a factory there at the dam. So, okay, well, moving up a little bit, can I picture where we are? We're kind of walking up Washington Street. The postmen have a real fun here because where does Washington and Lincoln and Maine, I mean, it's really a mess. And the reasons it's a mess is because the selectmen, very late 1800s, when they had to start naming streets because they got too many people, met somewhere around Cox Street and said, this is here, that's there. And because the fire station, which is directly across the street from the apartments, are on different streets. Love it. Okay, well, we're going to look here. We were over to the right before. Now we're moving up. This is the Brigham, so-called Brigham block. Kind of a handsome store. And you can see between there and the post office, you can see Pope's Hill off in the back, which is quite clear. Clear isn't cleared. And then this is the Chase House, and this very hard to read. This is Silas Manson, no relation to Charles, I believe. But notice they're really separate buildings, and all they did was just to put up a barrier here to kind of make it like, you know, they were sort of continuous. A somewhat later picture. This one obviously survived the great Hudson earthquake of. Oh, did I say that?
Earthquake.
There was no Hudson earthquake. Glass slides. And glass slides are absolutely incredible, but they tend to break, and that's what you get. But this was, what does it say? Cochrane and Whitman. Cochrane was a druggist, and the Cochrane building, which you'll see here in a moment.
What does it say about that?
Well, Daniel Stratton Insurance up here. I think this was Priest selling boots and shoes. Jocelyn, the lawyer, was up here. And the GAR met up, I don't know if you can see this here. It's a shield. And if you spend any time out west, the Union Pacific uses that shield. It kind of looks a little bit like a flag. And that is the shield of the GAR. The Grand Army of the Republic. Are there any Civil War historians? Because actually I have a GAR belt buckle, which we picked up in Sudbury, and it's a real one. And the reason I know it's a real one, guys, not gals, how do you put a belt on? This is a stupid question. But you take the belt, and you probably go like this. You go to the left, correct? Can't do it. This one goes to the right because of the buckle. It's just a hook on the back. And if anybody's really into it, I'm not going to take the pants off, but I'll take the buckle off, and you can look at it because on the four corners, it has the branches of the service at that time. Did not have the Air Force. Okay. Come on, you. Okay, moving up a little further, you'll see a picture of all of these in a moment. To the left of that building was the post office and express office. This was a very early version. One of the things, when you get pictures that you know are of the same thing, you look at them and say, this building looks totally different. Well, they did a lot of remodeling. Sometimes they tore buildings down and rebuilt them. So it can be kind of hard because most of those pictures, undated. And many of them don't even tell you where they are. But by taking pictures of places that you know, you can identify a lot of stuff, typically in the background. Okay. Looking up close, the post office, the express office. Here's a scholar. That's what they called kids in school in those days. And this was almost the view in that bird's eye view of the Decoration Day. Remember the three girls in the front over on the left? That's what was there. And that's about where you are. A little hard to tell here, but this is the Cochrane and then the Lawrence building. These buildings, well, let me leave it. You'll see about what happens here. Okay, well, let's go across the street. A very large building here. We have some fabulous pictures of this building. This is the one from the Decoration Day view that you originally saw. So but zooming in, that's what happens. It pixelizes and you don't get very clear. But we do have a really good picture of that building. It's one of the best, the clearest picture of any of the buildings. This is the Trowbridge shoe factory. And the upper 3 floors, shoes. Kids hanging out the window up here. What's happening here is, as we subsequently discovered, this is the militia on its return from the Great Boston Fire of 1870, 70. Very good. God, these people learn fast. That fire, by the way, was one of the major fires in the country, burnt 700 odd buildings. I mean, it was just incredible. Burned out the heart of Boston. All wooden, and we'll see what happened in Hudson with a similar situation. We actually know who some of these people are, but nevertheless, Anson and Hall clothing on the left, Myron Hewitt over here on the right. You'll see what he was. The Pioneer Printing, we have just a couple newspapers from the Pioneer. It lasted at about this time. It was like the third quarter of the 1800s, not too many issues. Okay, well, here was Hewitt. It was a jewelry store. Very similar to what we do today, except upstairs it's usually apartments rather than workshops. That was very common. On that site, this is what was there. Some of you may remember the town cleaners. And there was a post office. But now, a very, very nice remodeling of the so-called Chamberlain building. Because after Trowbridge, Chamberlain and Moulton got together. Okay, next door, should add, well, no, pointless. To the right was this house. This was Trowbridge's house. He lived right next door to the factory. And what's there now? Oh, yeah, St. Luke's. Yeah, built about 1911, quite a bit later. Okay, moving up a little further, we're here, down here, and then you see a number of other buildings. You kind of wonder, you know, what was there? Well, stuff came and went. When you read through this stuff, it's amazing how they moved buildings. They literally moved, and some were huge. You'll see this later. I mean, immense buildings. Okay, but here we are here in this quite handsome building. If the tree wasn't here, I think you would see this. I don't know what the architectural term is, but it's a mirror building. You could draw right down the middle, and what you see on the left with an L, you see on the right. This was the Thomas Atkinson building. He served in the Civil War. Married Emily, but he died. And that's an old picture. John Hardy, very famous bronze sculptor in the 20s, did a lot of these around the state. Very, very nice. That's an older one. Here's now. And if you were wondering, and I kind of, oh, come on you. Oh,
Don't say that word again.
some of you might have followed the, how should we say, vagaries of the time capsule. We'll mention the time capsule a little bit later. Okay, but I went back, and we do actually have quite a bit of information about the town. It's remarkable. So I tried to put together a little bit just to give you a flavor of what land and buildings were worth in those days. And this is through business directories, which were the phone books before phones. Well, here's Thomas here. The house was worth $1,000, land was $200, tax was $30. And then Thomas went away, Mrs. Emily, his wife, and you can begin to see over time, 71, 49, land prices begin to creep up a little bit. It's not totally clear when you look at the entries exactly what you're dealing with, because they own they own like 7 acres up on Cox Street, and it's hard to tell, but you get a flavor of what went on here. And by the early 1890s, we're up to 2,800. I don't know why it was half a house. I think they probably sold the other half. It became a boarding house. 1906, the house was gone, as we'll see, but the land was 2,400. And the town report, we can buy it for $5,000. The town bought it in 15, and in 18 renamed it Liberty Park. Okay, well, moving up a little further, you can envision standing looking at Liberty Park, St. Luke's to your left, and library. Here things get a little difficult because I can't correlate the maps. The maps don't seem to agree. This is the so-called Witt House, and this house supposedly is on the lot that the library was subsequently located on. This elm tree has a very distinctive shape. This house, by the way, supposedly was moved to River Road, where it still exists. But this house, and that's almost the identical tree. I've lined up those two things, and it almost looks like an identical tree, but I don't quite know what was going on here. But this is the Frank Brown house. Frank Brown figures prominently in a moment. But handsome houses that fronted on the commercial heart of town. I mean, really beautiful houses. Somewhere in through there, not a modern picture, but you'll recognize, oh, Dave Bonazzoli has just pulled up to the library in his favorite car. He wishes it was. Wonderful picture. Another older picture of the library. There we are there. We've had some renovations over time. Acquired a second floor in the 30s, and in the 60s, the back. Okay, so much for the tour up the side. Now let's look at Wood Square itself. This gets a little interesting. This is a very old picture. No date. But this could even be the 1840s, although that seems awfully early, but certainly by the 1850s. No date, but if you look up tintype, I mean, this was a long time ago. But at any rate, interesting picture. Doesn't mean anything now until we can start putting things on the picture itself. Well, this is Wood Square. I don't know if you can read it very well, but this is William Chase here. This is William Chase here. And, whoa, most appropriately, the biggest dominating thing in downtown, coffins. There were other people in these buildings too, but that's really what shows. This is Solon Wood Store, as in Wood Square, where the name comes from. But these up here, and you'll see what happens. The old red house, but that's with the Lewis block. You and I know it now as the Oddfellows block, built by Lewis. And the building on the right was rotated. The left side was turned so it faced the square. That building was moved down Main Street to where the Scally block is, or the Sherman House is now. And that is Sophia's Restaurant, across the street from the Peking Chinese restaurant. And then it burnt, as many buildings did. So what that did, and that's about as close as I can do it, let me go back. So this building was moved, that one turned around, so Felton Street, which didn't exist, was then laid out right there. So then we have this building, built 1870s by Lewis. This building on the right, very interesting because, and it's probably not clear, but there is a heron up here, or an egret, and then a dancing deer here, and it says James Gilson. James Gilson was a taxidermist. This building, which looks quite like the building that's there now, it isn't. It's much shorter, and then there is the Union Block just beyond it, a separate building. Okay, well, in the square itself, we got to move. This is a very early sketch of Solon Wood's store, built in the 1840s. Here is a photo of the store, and to place yourself, this is that Union Block you just saw, and the Oddfellows building is to the right. So we're standing in the square looking towards Cox Square, up Lincoln Street, up in that direction. Solon Wood, dry goods, not a term you hear much of anymore, but I love this. Parties purchasing housekeeping goods will be dealt with liberally. No idea what that means. Here is a view. We are standing on Main Street looking west. So that's where Wood's store was located. I didn't spend too much time on Main Street taking that picture, I'll tell you. Okay, and again, Jimmy was good enough. This is from the Oddfellows building, looking down towards the dam. Oh, the trees, the famous trees. I'll make no comment on that. I thought that was kind of slick. But that's about the best I can do for the footprint of Wood's store in the square. You know, it could have been a little bit, one way or the other, but that's as good as it's going to get. Okay, well, here's several different views. Here's pretty much the one that you just saw, but it was remodeled because here it was earlier in the 70s, and look at this. But just like we do ourselves, we remodel things. We change things all around. So it can easily get thrown off, especially on undated photos. We're looking up, here's the Washington Street Dam. We're looking up. Here is the building here. So it's from the left of these other views. Now, it's a little hard to see. In fact, it's very hard to see. But right there is a strange looking thing. And it's a watering trough. And some of you know where I'm going with this. That still exists. It's probably the only thing in the square that still exists. Where is it?
Now I remember.
Right on the corner of Park Street and the driveway of Wood Park. Next time you go, take a look, it's right there. It's one of those things that everybody goes by and very few people ever see. Okay, Solon Wood ran the store. This was interesting from a couple of reasons, you know, they bought, but it was sold to Brigham. The Brigham built up the factories, and it was June 4th, 1894. Interesting date. Okay, across the street from the fire station and the library. Russell Lewis built a wonderful house on Stephen Pope's that looked like a big apartment building beforehand. Building still exists, renovated a couple of years ago. Very nice renovation. Beautiful carriage house out the rear. Very nice. Okay, the old red house. This is the earliest store in Hudson. And this is the Lewis block. That's why it was often called the Lewis building, but now, but this is the first building, no longer existing. There was a fire department up behind. It didn't help. Stratton, you saw this picture a moment ago. Here is the part of the watering trough. I think I can see Lorene waving right now. And Vic is probably scowling in there at somebody's haircutting. Okay, Russell Lewis built that building that you saw in the 1870s. He was a photographer, and one of the longest term losses to the town is all of the glass slides. There were apparently thousands that went in the Great Fire. Okay, here we are in Wood Square. Here's the Wood store. And here's Felton Street right behind. This is a lunch cart. Some of you, one or two of you may not remember the lunch cart, but why it became famous because of the guy who ran it. Bobby Leach. Oh, a name that's, oh, of course, Bobby Leach. Sure, I remember Bobby Leach. Because
He went over Niagara Falls in a barrel.
he was the third person to go over Niagara Falls in 1911. The first one, women's lib, was Annie Taylor in 1901. She made it. Second one didn't make it. And he did. Bobby Leach. There he is. Picture, and there he is. I mean, there's the falls. Oh, broke a whole bunch of bones. And the story goes, he went off to New Zealand, slipped on a banana peel, mangled the leg got gangrene, and he died. There were a number of lunch carts. They were quite common in those days. We had several on Main Street. Okay, here is the Mansion House. Be careful because there was a Manson. This is the Mansion House. It was a hotel. Holden's Block here. What's at Holden's Block now? A bank driveway. I'm assuming the person who thought that was a good idea may no longer be with the company. But that was a personal view. There were lots of ads for these, but notice how good. This was a photo, but how good the sketches were. I mean, they're often much better than the photos. Well, on that site is the Wood Square Woods building. Okay, here we are to the Great Fire. We're going to move, so we're going to burn down very quickly. 1894, July 4th. Where was everybody? 4th of July? They were at the trotting park. Where was the trotting park? Riverside Park's where the high school is. So everybody's way out east. And by the time they said, uh-oh, what's that smoke doing there? By the time they got back and the horses and ran, it was essentially too late. It was a huge fire, and this is an ad from the New York Times. I mean, this was a big, big deal. It burnt out approximately that much of downtown, really the heart of town. All kinds of stories about what happened. We had fire stations around. They really weren't much help. There were hydrants. Famous story of a hydrant in front of the Trowbridge. By the time they got there with the hose, they hitched the hose up. The fire burnt the hose. They couldn't turn the hydrant off. They lost the water supply. You know, I mean, just everything went wrong. Please hang on. This is, I'll read it really quick. This is from the Selectmen's minutes. Selectmen met at their room in the townhouse, transacted business had to be attended to for the starting of a fire in the barn back of the Chamberlain factory, caused a great damage to be done to our town. Fire was caused by boys playing with matches. That's where the idea started, but look who was the clerk. Trowbridge. And a little bit later, that same day, this is from the Selectmen to Mossman, commanding Company M. Whereas it has been made to appear to the Selectmen of Hudson that owing to a great conflagration that is raging in our town, and that military force is necessary to aid the civil authority, now therefore we command you that you cause your command, armed and equipped without ammunition and with proper officers, to parade at once at the townhouse, then and there, to obey such orders as may be given. And they essentially had to patrol town. How did they summon people? In those days? Bugles. Okay, well here's kind of the very earliest. Remember Frank Brown's house at the library? Back of his house, somebody took this picture looking down behind what is now St. Luke's Church. That's the beginning. That's pretty much the view now. A lot of pollen on the river. After the fire, I mean, it really devastated. It just ate out downtown. Here's a picture as best as I could do it. In order to get this one, I had to go to the roof of Robinson's Hardware. There isn't anything else that I could really do to take that picture. And there are some things that there, but for the most part, here's kind of a close-up here. Off in the distance, the Lewis home, which fortunately didn't burn, but everything else did. The apartment building and the Lewis block, all of that stuff that you've seen up till now went. St. Michael's Church way in the back, the Baptist church next door, no longer there. The town hall, the turret of the town hall, the Unitarian church, which is still there. But look at the devastation. Later, they pulled all of this back. This was about the line of that Tin Pan Alley. Remember way back? They really took a lot. Here, well, I think I've labeled stuff. There was the Rotary. Well, what is now the Rotary? Felton Street. This house made it, and behind it is the old high school, 1882, which is now apartments.
Yep.
Fire station library will be here, and St. Luke's will be about there. And this was the Trowbridge factory. You saw that wonderful picture earlier. Okay, a view looking down Main Street. But look at this. We're standing in front of the fire station. If you can envision it, that's the town hall. Everything between the fire station and the town hall, gone. I'm going to skip through here. This was probably the same day. It's still smoldering. Takes a while to get all that stuff out of there. I took a long time looking at this picture. Finally concluded that that was about the old high school. So if that's true, that picture becomes this one. Okay, a lot of stuff disappeared. The selectmen met in very shortly after, voted that the Board of Selectmen deem it inexpedient to allow the erection of any more inferior buildings on the burnt district. Key statement. Selectmen wondering why, or all of us wondering why they're brick buildings. That's the statement. Can't do it. Okay, a lot of things happened here. They widened the street. They actually took land. Reference inspection. You can't build crummy buildings. They had the county widen Main Street and Washington Street, much wider than they were in the early days. They paid Solon Wood $11,500 for the Rotary, because of course they owned the property, couldn't just take it. The fire station, our modern one. Let's see, this is Wood, 6 months after the fire. What building did Wood move into? The Wood building. Damn, people are getting better. But we're going to lose them here. And some of you will remember, perhaps, the Durkee building, the Wood building, and then finally the micro creamery. Oh, I have to show you this. Does everybody know where this is? This is the Prescott building. This is the micro creamery. Everybody know where we are? Okay. I have to thank Jeanette Poplis for this. That's 10 feet. I took a tape and measured it. Guess what? Bill's Lunch. This is from about 1940, and I understand Len worked here in high school. Never let it be said. And it's listed there. Okay, we're going to skip up here. A lot of these buildings were replaced. This would be looking down Main Street. We know it's before 1872 because there's no town hall, which will be in this grove of trees. There's the Unitarian Church, the Mansion House. That view. A couple other views. Okay, what we didn't mention, and I will not spend any time on here, thank God it's not done yet, are the railroads and the electric, which came through. Focused on Wood Square from the late 90s to the late 20s. You could go anywhere. There were 3 major lines. They kind of went all over the place. Okay, things are happening now in administration about the Rotary. There was that business of the trees, a lot of fuss about cutting down the trees. Well, you can see over time that sometimes we had trees, sometimes we did not have trees. But there is a desire to do something about that. Okay, some of you will remember the Christmas lights. We could not do this, and I have to thank Dave Bonazzoli for these, and Richard for some of these pictures. Here's the town hall. These are just selected. I mean, it was a huge deal. People came from all over. Light and Power put it up. They sustained the bill. 1926, I think, was like the first year. At least we can find it verified. And up through the late 60s. Here's a black and white. I think that's the cross on Pope's Hill. Here's the fire station. But hard to tell. One more. Maybe it's the moon. Yeah. Okay, speaking of the cross, some of you know interesting history about this, which we won't go into. That's why you can't see it now. The trees are built up. If you look, you see, where is it? You see this, which is a cell tower. That's what you see in the trees, not the cross. Okay, whoops. We need some lights. Okay, thank you very much.